What's up, guys? Skip for Kindness here, and today we have an after range report for the Norinco 213. So I picked this up about 2 weeks ago for the very high price of $200. These tend to be $200 or at least around that price range. Usually very cheap. You'll find like some of the other Tokarevs, like the Type 54s, are usually a little bit more, not that much more. But the 9mm Norinco Tokarevs tend to be around the cheapest Tokarevs you can buy. And with this one in particular, now there are 3 different variants of the 213s. You have the first import models, which is this one right here, which the main difference with it being the magazine. They actually use the standard length magazine, but they feature a metal spacer in it. This one's missing the spring and all that, of course. But they feature a metal spacer in it to sort of increase reliability, though supposedly you can just use regular Tokarev mags just fine. Something we'll have to test a little bit later. Now, later on when they would import these, they would go to a thinner, dedicated 9mm magazine and have the actual spacer in the grip. But you can see, comparing the two, this one's obviously thinner. That's for the later 213s. Now, there is also another Norinco 213, the Norinco 213A. Highly rare, but that's their double stack variant. They actually have a double stack Tokarev variant. Now, another thing with these earlier import ones is this massive grip that they tend to feature. Now, honestly, the reason they did this is because their idea was that Americans have bigger hands. My hands aren't really super big, so it's not really necessary. But one thing with this, though, is I found the grip to be fairly comfortable, at least before I had shot it. Now we'll go into how the shooting of this was like. When I had actually shot in this thing, the grip tends to force your hand high enough. If you two-hand it, it tends to force your hand a bit high, and you will get hammer bite. You can see right there, we got that. That was after barely even shooting 50 rounds. You can position your hand in a way where it won't do that, but it's really hard to do when you two-hand. Now, I did have to do a second range trip, and aside from the main thing I was testing, we'll get into that in a second. One thing I wanted to test was one-handing this, because a lot of these pistols are made to be one-handed. Two-handed wasn't always the main doctrine for pistols, so I figured maybe the grip is better for more of a one-handed stance. And it turns out, though it does have the pistol very high, that hammer bite thing completely went away. So evidently, one thing with these grips is they are more made for a one-handed shooting stance. Now, you're going to be wondering with a $200 pistol how it ran, and initially we were getting, I think I got like 2 stovepipes. This is out of 50 rounds. The main problem, though, was I was getting constant light strikes, and this turned out to possibly be the ammunition. The first time I brought MagTech ammunition, and then the second time I brought half MagTech and then half S&B. It does seem like the S&B ammo actually didn't have any problems with light strikes, so I think it's just the MagTech was a little bit too hard of a primer for the firing pin. Of course, with that, I will be sure to keep you updated. I plan to take this out hopefully sometime this week, maybe before this video releases, and I'll leave in the comments if running some different ammunition brands to solve the light strike problem. Now past that, I mean, it is really just standard Tokarev, but in 9mm. I mean, there really ain't nothing too special. I did notice with this grip, it is kind of weird trying to drop the magazine if you do it with your thumb. One thing about me, though, is I'm actually used to doing it with my middle finger. It's going to be hard to show on camera, but when I do it with my middle finger, it actually doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm used to doing it like that because of the CX4, you kind of have to use your middle finger as opposed to your thumb. But yeah, that magazine release is very tiny, so you got to fight that grip. So dropping the magazine can be a bit weird. But I mean, other than that, one thing with this too. For those unaware with Tokarevs, they had to add an actual safety because the original safety was just having it on half cock. You can't pull the trigger because it's a single action pistol. So the original safety was having a half cock. That wasn't good enough for imports, so they actually featured this really odd, but actually not too bad, sort of like throw lever safety. Now, lastly, this was one thing I forgot to add. It's just a really weird quirk with this gun. I guess 2 things. I've noticed sometimes the slide won't want to be pulled back, and I have to like cock the hammer and then something weird. But the one thing I wanted to get into was with the magazine. So obviously it locks open on an empty mag. However, it seems like when the follower is in, you can't drop the slide. I mean, this isn't an issue because when you fully load the magazine, the slide will drop, but it does seem like it is that follower because I have the other mag right here, doesn't have one. That one will drop without a problem. Just a weird little quirk with this, not really super important because, again, it only does that when there's no ammo in there, but just a weird little thing with this pistol, or weird two things, as mentioned with that hammer thing earlier, just to bring up. But anyways, that is the initial after range report. We will, of course, as mentioned, try to test out the 7.62 Tokarev mags, like the standard ones that aren't modified. And then, of course, once I get my GoPro fixed, I need to get a new battery for it. Once I get that all fixed and everything, then we'll, of course, have a shooting video. But yeah, anyways, I think that's going to do it for this short little after range report of the Norinco 213. I hope y'all enjoyed the video as much as I personally enjoyed making it. I will see y'all next time.